Well, hello everybody. I went into politics from the trade union movement, 15 years in the trade union movement, and I have worked and seen the effect of economic restructuring on large sites and how devastating that can be for communities, whether in the automotive sector, chemical sector, steel sector, where I led steel workers for 5 years across Europe, including I started the job 2 months before Lehman Brothers crashed. Everything was great, then it wasn't. And I know from that background in the trade union movement that the cliff edge that we're standing on today will have a long shadow of social and political impacts if we don't get the decisions right and we don't make the right call at the moment. And as an MEP in the last 5 years in the European Parliament, we've had a unique advantage point with a foot on both sides of the negotiations. At the one hand, as a member of the European Parliament, we're formally part of the EU 27 negotiating team. So we've seen the internal workings, which actually, despite the rhetoric around the EU, have been extremely transparent and accessible to see how the EU 27's positions in the Brexit debate were formulated, and we've been able to influence those to improve citizens' rights and other elements. And on the other hand, as a Labour MP as part of the international trade team with Barry Gardner, I've seen the Westminster debate, which has been totally untransparent. A government hiding from Parliament, now hiding from Parliament illegally, thanks to the court judgment today, but hiding from any proper scrutiny and unwilling in its post-Brexit plans in terms of trade policy and other areas to accept any parliamentary scrutiny which would replicate what we have today. So it's been a quite unique vantage point, and I now found myself in this very bizarre situation of living in the afterlife because we weren't meant to be here. We should have left in March. We weren't meant to have European elections. We weren't meant to have British MEPs. We're all quite awkward and a thorn in the side of everybody that we still exist. But that also is very liberating because I've got nothing to lose in this debate, and I insist that we have to have a thoroughly honest debate. And why is that? Because I represent a region that voted overwhelmingly to leave, the northeast of England. We have become the emblem of leave, with Sunderland announcing first, but we are the region with the most at stake inside this debate. A hard Brexit, a no-deal Brexit, would be 16% knocked off our GDP in comparison to business as usual, according to the Treasury. But not just according to the Treasury. Durham University have done extensive modelling, independent modelling, which has demonstrated very, very similar figures for our region. We had a trade surplus until very recently, when the way of calculating it was changed. We export as a region, and we export goods and services mainly into that European market. We have always, we're very far from London in some ways, squeezed between Hollywood and London, and in many ways our region looks out across the North Sea more than it looks south or north. So it really matters what happens, but I want to be very clear, there is no good Brexit deal for the North East. The deal that we have now is the best deal available to us as a region, in terms of jobs, in terms of rights, in terms of investment. We have never seen investment from Westminster dealt in the same way as we've seen European investment, allocated on the basis of need and not on the basis of political influence. We have, as Mike has set out, a rights framework which is entirely dependent on European legislation and case law. And we have about 100,000 jobs which directly depend on exports into the European market. So we have a lot at stake, and really what we're talking about is everything other than current membership and remaining is dealing with a suboptimal option and dealing with damage limitation. And that's an extremely depressing place to be, if I can be very honest. What I would like to raise here, because we're now entering what will be a very volatile part of British politics as a result of the decision today, Parliament being recalled, a potential general election, or a people's vote before a general election. Let's see what the order is. But we know that those who stoked hate and stoked division to deliver that leave vote in places that I represent, communities who have been hit the hardest by austerity measures, who feel like we heard on the doorsteps in places like Grangetown in Middlesbrough, in places, parts of Sunderland, in pit villages across the northeast, people felt they had nothing left to lose, so they were voting for a change. The forces that stoked that division in 2016 are stoking the division today, and they are making a pitch around a clean Brexit. And I want to be very clear, and we have to be very, very clear, that there will be nothing clean about Brexit for the communities that I represent in the European Parliament. Nothing clean about Brexit for our NHS. Nothing clean about Brexit for our steel industry, our car industry, pharmaceuticals, chemicals, financial services, business services and others. But we have to undermine that argument, which is very powerful on the doorstep, that we can just walk away and it will be a clean Brexit. And with that argument comes a betrayal myth. And we should learn from history. I don't know if any of you have watched the BBC Two programme about the rise of the Nazis, the way that betrayal myths are used in populist politics to basically play on emotion, on nostalgia, on a sense of the establishment against the people. This is what is being built up today. And I know I can see a lot of business people in this room, I have a very, very special plea for you. You have been way, way too silent. Way too silent. People don't trust me. When I was in Mike's camp as a trade union leader before I stood for election to the European Parliament, I was considered to be one of the most trusted people in the population. Trade unionists, shop stewards have a very high trust threshold in society. Politicians are below estate agents and bankers. We're scum. People don't believe what we're saying, but they trust local businesses, they trust employers, they trust shop stewards, they trust their local representatives, and we need those voices to be louder, and we need those voices to be talking about a story, a narrative, not about facts and figures and statistics, to be talking about the investment in the communities that I represent, to be talking about the jobs in the communities that I represent, to be talking about what's really at stake in this debate. And in part of that, we need to flesh out together the Remain and Reform agenda, that staying in the EU, that fighting for Remain is not fighting for the status quo, that it's fighting for a picture of where we're going, because people need hope and they need a place that we're trying to move together collectively. So I would just plea, I had a meeting with one very big, influential, one of the big 5 employers' organisations that starts with Make and ends in UK in Strasbourg last week. And I asked them, when will you accept that you have passed the Rubicon? When will you accept that you have to go out publicly and make the case, the companies that are represented, employers' organisations, that we have to be fighting for the best deal on the table, the deal that we've got today, but not the status quo, a better Europe in the future. Thank you.